Et lorsque j'enlève la musique, vous pouvez commencer à lire votre introduction. Un instant, s'il vous plaît.
This conference is being recorded. Cette conférence est enregistrée.
Bonjour et bienvenue à cette conférence de presse. Good afternoon and welcome to this press conference. Je vais maintenant passer la parole au ministre Leblanc pour débuter. To Minister Leblanc to begin.
Merci beaucoup, Jean-Sébastien.
Thank you very much, Jean-Sébastien. Good afternoon, everyone.
Today, I'm joined by my colleagues, Ministers Mendicino and Alghabra. We're going to begin with some exciting news from Minister Mendicino. So, à vous, Marco.
Over to you, Marco.
Merci, Dom.
Thank you, Dominic. Hello, everyone.
I'll be joining you virtually from the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Haudenosaunee. Je me joins à vous à partir du territoire.
I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining you from the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Haudenosaunee.
From over, it's clear that we have entered a new phase of our fight against COVID-19. And that's because of one powerful tool: vaccines. Thanks to the incredible progress that Canadians have made, our country is reopening, gradually, cautiously, and guided by public health. This means that many Canadians are contemplating doing something that they haven't done in a long while, and that's travel. Nous sommes conscients
We know that many countries, including Canada, are beginning to reopen their borders. We also know that vaccination rates are increasing across the world. Canadians will soon need a reliable means of demonstrating their proof of COVID-19 vaccination.
every day. More and more Canadians are getting vaccinated. Over 8 out of every 10 Canadians have their first dose, and more than 70% of our population is fully vaccinated. With the diverse and plentiful supply of vaccines and the cooperation of Canadians, we now have the best vaccination rate in the G20. I want to take a moment to thank all Canadians who've rolled up their sleeves over these past months. As more and more are getting vaccinated and are planning for life in a post-vaccinated world, including like to safe return to travel. Canada and indeed other countries around the world are beginning to expect a vaccine credentials as relates to international travel. Make sure Canadians have access, standardized, accessible, and reliable vaccine credential program. Internet unique pour vaccination, mais nous savons que normalisé.
There is not, at this point, an international standard for vaccine credentials, but we know that a standardized Canadian documents will facilitate travel. We're working with our international partners to ensure that other countries in the world are aware of our very successful vaccination strategy, which is science-based.
The government is collaborating with provinces, territories, and Indigenous communities right across the country to address the matter of vaccine credentials. I'm pleased to inform Canadians that we are working actively with the provinces and territories on a secure pan-Canadian proof of vaccination for international travel. These credentials will have a common design across all provinces. They will include the holder's COVID-19 vaccination history, including the vaccine types, date, and location. These documents should be available to all Canadian citizens, permanent residents, and temporary residents living in Canada if they're fully vaccinated according to the standards set by public health. Je suis heureux d'informer les Canadiens que nous
I am pleased to inform Canadians that we're working closely with provinces and territories on a secure pan-Canadian standardized proof of vaccination for international travel. These credentials will have a common design across all provinces. They will include the holder's COVID-19 vaccination history, which includes vaccine types, date, and location. These documents should be available to all Canadian citizens, permanent residents, and temporary residents living in Canada if they're fully vaccinated.
Complètement vacciné. Building the arrival borders with a document outlining a traveler's vaccination history so other countries may assess if travelers from Canada meet their public health requirements. Just having a proof of vaccination doesn't guarantee entry into any foreign country. And as the world returns to travel, everyone is going to move at their own pace. Each country turns here in Canada. I want to stress Canada's continued public health measures at the border, which remain crucial to stopping the spread of COVID-19. Anyone traveling to Canada must meet pre-entry and on-arrival testing requirements. Those aren't free and non-essential from all countries in the United States remain prohibited until September this year.
With today's announcement, we are continuing to support public health and public safety for all Canadians, all while facilitating international travel, once it's safe to travel again.
Today's announcement is a major step toward resuming safe international travel. Ultimately, the efforts of Canadians are what are going to make this program a success and the our borders possible. Once again, I want to thank them. Turn it back to you.
Merci beaucoup, Marco.
Thanks very much, Marco.
Now, turn to the Minister of Transport, Omar Alghabra. Over to you, Omar.
Good afternoon, Dominic. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour à tous. I would like also to first start by acknowledging that I am speaking to you today from the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. The pandemic has demonstrated how our well-being is interlinked with the well-being of our neighbors. Canadians have shown strength and resilience throughout the pandemic and have shown extraordinary commitment to following public health advice. And as we look ahead to rebooting our economy and gradually reopening our borders to the world, we must ensure we are doing so in a way that is safe and protects Canadians and our public health systems. We know that vaccinations are key to keeping Canadians safe from COVID-19, as Minister Mendicino has just said. Getting vaccinated will protect your health and safety and that of your friends, families, and communities. Vaccination will also allow us to resume more and more of the activities we love, including travel. And the proof of vaccination my colleague announced is an important part of that. As of last Monday, 5 additional Canadian airports are eligible to receive international flights, and we are working closely with them and our Public Health of Canada and Canada Border Services Agency partners to ensure that they can do so safely. I know many other Canadian airports also want to start receiving international travelers, and we are engaging with them so that when conditions are right, they will be able to do so safely. And I know we all look forward to traveling again. I ask people to be patient during this adjustment period where there could be longer waiting periods. I also ask that we continue to follow public health rules at airports, on planes, and at land border crossings. The health and safety of Canadians will always be our priority. la santé et la sécurité.
The health and safety of Canadians are our priority.
We are monitoring conditions at home and abroad to safeguard Canadians. That's why on Monday, based on the latest public health advice, Transport Canada extended the ban that restricts all direct commercial and private passenger flights to Canada from India until September 21st. We continue to closely monitor the situation, and we will be working closely with the Government of India to enable a safe return of direct flights as soon as conditions permit. International travel rules can continue to change at a moment's notice, so I encourage anyone planning a journey to follow the latest public health advice and be aware of the travel requirements established by the Government of Canada. And to my fellow Canadians, if you haven't yet done so, please book your appointment to get vaccinated now. It is the key to emerging from this pandemic safer and stronger. If we all do our part by getting vaccinated, we will be able to resume the activities we love, like travel, while staying safe. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you very much, Omar. Merci beaucoup, Omar. Alors, Jean-Sébastien, à vous maintenant.
Jean-Sébastien, over to you. We are all ready to take questions.
Now to take questions, so over to you, Jean-Sébastien.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Ministre.
Thank you, Minister. We will now begin our question and answer period.
Questions, as usual, it will be one question and one follow-up per reporter. Donc, comme d'habitude, ça va être une question et un suivi.
As usual, there will be one question and one follow-up question per reporter.
Pass it over to the operator for the first question. Je vais maintenant passer la parole à...
And now over to the operator for the first question.
Thank you. Merci. Please press star 1 at this time if you have a question. S'il vous plaît, appuyez sur étoile 1.
Please press star 1 if you have a question.
La première question.
First question.
From Mia Rapson from the Canadian Press. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. I could not hear Minister Mendicino very well, so I'm just wanting to clarify. So you're telling us that you had been promising vaccine passports for travel were coming, and you're telling us now that they're coming. They're not actually ready yet? Do we have any kind of timeline as to when people will have these in their hands?
Minister
Marco,
Mendicino, you're on mute.
You're on mute now, Marco.
Well, to be clear,
I'm sorry, we can't hear the minister at all.
It seems that we have a connection issue with Minister Mendicino. Minister Mendicino will reconnect in a few seconds. For
Mia, it's Dominic LeBlanc. I could perhaps add something, and when Marco reconnects, or if Omar wants to add something, as we've said for a number of months, having an internationally recognized proof of vaccination credential, we think is essential for Canadians who want to safely resume international travel when it's appropriate to do so. It's a complex undertaking because it necessarily involves the Government of Canada working with every province and territory. They are properly the holders of the data in terms of who in their jurisdictions have been immunized. So we have been having ongoing and very collaborative, constructive conversations with the provinces and territories to ensure that we can safely receive from them the necessary information on which Canadians are immunized. And our job as a national government will be to then provide Canadians with this recognized, internationally recognized credential. We're obviously expecting it to be a digital credential, but there will obviously be other forms available to Canadians who aren't able to use a digital credential. But this effort with the provinces and territories is ongoing, and if Marco's internet hadn't cut out, he would have told you that we expect to have this proof of vaccine credential available early this fall. And we are, as Omar said, encouraging Canadians to continue to get fully vaccinated. We've been very encouraged by premiers across the country, again, asking their citizens to do what's necessary to protect them, their loved ones. The best way to get to a circumstance where it's safe to resume a whole series of these activities is to increase the number of fully vaccinated Canadians. And we think that this credential that my colleague is leading for the Government of Canada, but in collaboration with provinces and territories, is yet another reason for Canadians to see the benefit of being fully vaccinated and therefore be able to safely resume international travel. But Mia, the good news for you is Marco seems to be back on the screen. Marco, do you want to add something?
No, I think you've answered it very comprehensively. I'm just hoping that this connection is better now. Can you all hear me? Excellent.
That was definitely better. I'm also curious if you could explain whether or not these passports could be used domestically or if there would be some kind of limitation that would prevent that from happening.
Well, as Minister LeBlanc just said, we're going to be working very closely with provincial and territorial governments who, of course, have the primary jurisdiction around rules and reopening with regards to the domestic economy and communities and such. And our primary focus is to work with them to stand up a proof of vaccination credential program that will inform decisions related to international travel. And together, I think the message that we are sending, at all levels of government is that we want to reopen, but we want to do it safely. And obviously, the more Canadians take up getting vaccinated, then the sooner that we can do that, and the sooner they can return to a safe resumption of travel.
And Mia, perhaps je peux aussi juste ajouter, je pense le ministre Mendicino.
I'd like to add something, Mia. Minister Mendicino said it very well. Some provincial governments, including the government of Quebec, have decided to offer their citizens proof of vaccination credentials so that these citizens might be able to resume or continue some activities locally in their provinces. Other provinces are looking into taking similar action. We feel that that's positive. The Prime Minister said very clearly last week that our government feels very positively about the Quebec government's decision. If provinces wish to work with us in order to use our federal credentials within their province, well, we would be happy to work with them.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Ministre.
Thank you very much, Minister.
For the next question.
La question suivante, the next question, is from Jacques-Audrey Charbonneau.
Jacques-Audrey Charbonneau, Radio-Canada, question. Hello, thank you for taking my question. My first question, Minister LeBlanc, you mentioned Quebec. A vaccine passport was just announced in Quebec with a QR code. Will your proof of vaccination be similar in format? Will you follow the Quebec format? Answer, Minister LeBlanc. Thank you, Ms. Charbonneau, for your question. We feel, and Prime Minister Trudeau said so last week when he was in Quebec with Premier Legault, the Prime Minister said, and we feel that Quebec's action is very positive, very encouraging. It will be yet another tool for protecting Quebecers when it comes to reopening or continuing some sectors of the economy, some activities. We have a very constructive working relationship with the Quebec government, as Minister Mendicino just said. For us, the federal government, we are focusing on finding a way to give Canadians and Quebecers a tool which will be recognized internationally in order to facilitate international travel to countries, some countries which will require such a vaccine passport. Now, When it comes to whether or how this federal tool will be used in provinces and territories, that remains to be seen. We will continue to look at what Quebec's doing and work with Quebec, of course. We will see how Quebec proceeds, and there may be similarities with how we proceed, but for us, the goal is international travel. Follow-up question, Jacques-Audrey Charbonneau. What about having two different types of vaccines? The first one and the second one being different. We have done so in Canada and consider this fully vaccinated, but in other parts of the world, that's not accepted as full vaccination. We've heard that you would speak with other countries and other governments. Where are we on that? Answer, Minister Leblanc. This is an ongoing conversation with provincial governments in Canada. For example, last week, Premier Ford called me to discuss this very matter. Within Cabinet, the Cabinet COVID-19 Response Committee, we discussed this a few weeks ago with Dr. Tam and public health officials. Dr. Tam is in constant communication with her counterparts, be they in the European Union, in England, in the United States, so that, just as you said, we can have consistency and clarity on this matter. The World Health Organization is also dealing with and addressing this matter. We must remain positive and optimistic. We hope that there will be some standardized platform or some standardized way to have vaccine combinations or vaccine mixing recognized as full vaccination everywhere, especially for these Canadians who travel. We are making some progress, and we hope that we will have a standardized agreement with other countries, certainly the G7 countries, for instance, in order for there to be safe travel.
Merci, Monsieur le Ministre.
Thank you, Minister.
Over to you for the next question. Opérateur, prochaine question.
La question suivante, the next question is from Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC. Please go ahead.
Thank you. That you would be working with provinces and territories to make this happen is kind of self-evident, and the least Canadians would expect. You don't have a timeline for us today. We don't know what this thing is going to look like. Why are you holding this announcement this afternoon when you don't have any concrete details?
Well, on the contrary, I would offer we do have a timeline. Our ambition is to see this, the next iteration of a proof of vaccine credential program, launched as early fall. And this is building on the success of the first stage of the proof of vaccine credential program, which we've launched successfully through the ArriveCan app, which helps to inform inbound travel for Canadians. It's something that has worked very well. The fact is that we understand that this is going to be an important piece to the puzzle as Canadians begin to resume their plans for travel. So we do have a timeline, and that timeline is to move forward as quickly as possible. We are also announcing this today because thanks to the hard work of Minister LeBlanc and many others, including Minister Haidu, we have built up a strong coalition of provinces who wish to collaborate with us to stand up these platforms. It is the provinces that have the primary jurisdiction around health, and therefore, as you pointed out in your question, naturally they have the data, and we are going to stand up a system that will allow us to use that data to responsibly inform decisions for both inbound and outbound travel. And you know, at current, we have provinces like British Columbia, Quebec, Saskatchewan, all of the territories with whom we've built some real momentum here. So both in terms of timeline as well as the high degree of collaboration that we are seeing among provinces and territories, and that's something that we hope to build on. This is going to help us roll out the next phase of a proof of vaccination credential program that has already begun with the ArriveCan app.
Okay, thanks. And looking at your international partners, where are we at in terms of having countries accept vaccinations such as AstraZeneca, which are not necessarily approved elsewhere, but in Canada they are?
Well, as Blanc say, to a question from one of the prior journalists, we're not only working within Canada with our provincial and territorial partners, we're also at international tables, including with the World Health Organization as well as ICAO, to set those standards around vaccines and the technology that we're going to use to stand up the next phase of this plan. And what Canadians can be assured of is that with regards to the standards of vaccinations that we will use, that we will take as a sovereign country, that it will ensure that we continue to manage this pandemic responsibly, effectively, so that we can keep everyone healthy and safe as it relates to international travel. So that work is afoot, and it is obviously going to be integrated into the next phase of this plan, and that's work that we will continue to do.
Thank you, Minister Mendicino. Operator, over to you for the next question. Opérateur, à vous pour la prochaine question.
Thank you. La question suivante. The next question is from Mackenzie Gray, CTV News. Please go ahead.
Anyone who wants to take this question can take it. Some of the premiers who you seem to be working with have been very resistant to a domestic or a provincial level vaccine passport. In your conversations with them, have they all committed to handing over the relevant and necessary data to the federal government so you're able to properly give out one of these passports?
Perhaps I could start off, and if my colleagues want to add something. Yes, we're very confident that the ongoing discussions between Health Canada and the Public Health Agency of Canada and their provincial counterparts around the way to safely and securely transfer that data to the Government of Canada in order that we can put together the very proof of vaccine credential that my colleague Marco Mendicino is discussing. We're very confident that that process will unfold smoothly. The Prime Minister has raised this on at least, I think, 3 First Ministers' calls, certainly on which I've been a participant, and the reaction of the premiers was extraordinarily encouraging and positive. He was very clear that this is properly data that is in the hands of provincial health authorities. We just need to have the secure, safe way to access the data in order to produce this proof of vaccine credential. And the premiers, certainly, any conversations I've had, and I know our colleague Patty Haidu and her officials with their provincial and territorial counterparts have been very constructive. I think it's important to separate the conversation that some premiers are having in their own jurisdictions around domestic use of such a credential with collaborating with the Government of Canada on the international proof of vaccine for international travel. We expect that to be very collaborative and very constructive.
Minister, could this passport that the federal government is setting up be used in a domestic setting? You know, provinces like Ontario, in the example, have said, no way, we're not having a domestic vaccine passport. But could the proof that the federal government give be applicable or usable in a domestic setting?
Yeah, so I'll offer a few comments, and Marco or Omar can obviously add something. Sure, if provinces decided that they wanted to use for their own reasons as the best way to protect their citizens and to keep their economies open to the extent that it's safe, and if provinces decided in their own jurisdiction that this was another measure that would bring an additional protection to their citizens, they would obviously be able to use this credential for that purpose. Some provinces are developing their own proof of vaccine credential. I'm sure you've taken note of the Government of Quebec doing that. We see that as positive if the Government of Quebec has decided to do that in their own jurisdiction. But we want this to be a collaborative, constructive effective, but also speedy process, as Minister Mendicino said. So if provinces decide and Canadians want to use this particular credential for some domestic purpose, we would see that just as an additional protection that they may have. But Marco or Omar may want to add something.
I would just briefly, and I think you touched on this, is that the cooperation is going to be the hallmark of the next phase of this plan. Our focus is clearly to stand up a platform that will enable proof of vaccine credentials to inform international travel decisions as undertaken by the family of federal ministries that are implicated at the border. But certainly, as Minister LeBlanc pointed out, there may be other applications which may have ready use for the reopening of the domestic economy that falls very much under the provincial purview. But I think we all embrace the idea that as we've seen more Canadians get vaccinated, we are now in a position to reopen our economies. That's a positive thing. There's a pent-up demand among Canadians to get back to life as normal. Everyone wants to go back to normal life, and that includes resumption of safe travel. What we're announcing today is the next tangible, concrete phase of a plan that has already been put into place through the Arrive Can app, which will build on the cooperation that we are seeing, again, thanks to the hard work of Minister LeBlanc, Minister Haidu, and many others that will allow us to take those decisions safely, reliably, accessibly right across the country.
Thank you, Ministers. Operator, over to you for the next question. Donc, opérateur, à vous pour la prochaine question.
Merci. The next question, la question suivante, is from Tonda McCharles, Toronto Star. Please go ahead.
Hi there. Thanks for taking my question. Ministers, I just wonder if you could give us a little bit more clarity on what this will look like. You basically are saying the same thing you told us mid-June, that you've got agreement by the provinces that this is a desirable thing, and everybody agrees that it should be a safe way to transfer the provincially held data. But so exactly what are you looking at? What does it look like to Canadians, and what does it look like to the provincial health authorities? In other words, is it an encrypted pipeline somehow, or an encrypted database that you're holding, and then you're going to produce a QR code or some kind of machine-readable thing? Is it an app? If you could describe it a little better to us, what people should expect to see within, you're saying early fall, within 4 weeks or so.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Tonda. I think it's a very fair and practical one. Look, describing what the next phase of a proof of vaccination credential program looks like will depend on establishing standards with regards to vaccines, and we've touched on that, and that's work that we're undertaking domestically as well as internationally, as well as the technology. I'm sure that there is integrity in this program, that it's accessible, that it will be accessible to those
Minister, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm finding it very hard to hear you. Minister, I'm sorry, your audio
better now? Can you hear me?
Poor. Yes, but I didn't get a good chunk of that. You said after standards on vaccines, and I think you said trying to establish some integrity in the program, but it's very unclear what you're saying. So would you just recap there?
Hear me.
I'm sorry for the interruption, Minister. We cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Is that better? Okay. We're taking it to the top. I said it was a very fair and practical question, and what we are doing is establishing standards with regards to both vaccines as well as technology. And as far as what that will look like in the next phase of this plan, yes, very likely it will be digital. It will involve a code. It will be standardized so that when Canadians are traveling abroad, that there will be a hallmark that readily identifies travelers that are from Canada. And with those hallmarks, we will collaborate with provincial and territorial governments to create something that is reliable, that is standardized, and that is accessible. So, that sort of puts, I think, some parameters around what travelers can expect around visualizing what the next stage of this PVC looks like. And I hope you got that, Tonda.
I think I got most of it, though there's some breakup. And so can you clarify 2 points on that answer? Is the data then that the provinces will transfer to confirm for a federally designed platform the vaccination status of somebody, will that data be held by the federal government or simply transferred on a one-off basis? And would private sector, say, sporting venues or concerts, be able to require use of that thing to allow admission by people, even in the absence of a provincial decision to make vaccine passports used, such as Quebec is doing?
Again, very two important questions. I'll deal with the second part of your question, which is, I think, something that we've touched on earlier around, potential other purposes for which the next phase of a federal provincial vaccine credential program could be used with regards to domestic economic decisions which fall under the purview and jurisdiction of provincial governments. As we've said, in the spirit of good faith and collaboration, we want to stand up this program, but it will certainly fall to the decision of provincial governments as to whether or not they wish to use the platform for other purposes, including, as you pointed out in your question, whether or not people should be able to go to large contact events like sporting events or concerts, etc. Those are decisions which will be taken by provinces, and we have to respect their jurisdiction and the decisions that they will take. But with regards to the first part of your question, I will say that in the first instance, we respect that provinces are the primary holders of this data because they administer health on a day-to-day basis. That is the way our federation works. And as far as how it will work technologically, that remains to be ironed out. But the key thing I think to emphasize at this stage is that the platform will safeguard data. It will have integrity. There will be checks and balances in place with the technology that we will use in conjunction with the provinces. That it will safeguard everyone's privacy, because that's obviously very paramount, and that it will be accessible for those who need to use this platform to upload their credentials so that they can travel. And those are among the key principles that are going to inform the next phase of this platform. And again, I'll just emphasize and stress, we are not starting from scratch. We have already successfully implemented the first phase of this through the ArriveCan app, which helps to inform inbound international travel decisions. And so many of the elements of that technology, we certainly hope can be integrated and woven into the next phase of this, which again, we're moving forward with as much speed as possible, but we want to get it right.
Thank you, Minister Mendicino. Opérateur, à vous pour la prochaine question. Operator, over to you for the next question.
The next question, la question suivante est de Catherine Lévesque, La Presse canadienne.
Catherine Lévesque, La Presse canadienne. Question. Hello, everyone. My question is for Minister Leblanc, I suspect. It was either you or your colleague, Minister Mendicino, who was saying earlier that there's a bit of momentum with some provinces who are more open than others to this proof of vaccination. Are we to understand that there are thus some provinces which are more reticent to this proof of vaccination? And if so, which provinces would these be? Answer, Minister Leblanc. Thank you for your question, Ms. Lévesque. I'd like to make a few comments, and Marco might add to what I have to say. As I said in English, provincial and territorial premiers have, on at least 3 occasions during calls with Prime Minister Trudeau, accepted eagerly to work with us in order to work safely and effectively to develop this vaccine passport, this proof of vaccination, in order to allow Canadians to travel abroad. I don't feel that any provinces in particular are hesitant or reticent. My colleague, Patty Haidu, and senior officials who work with her are constantly communicating with their provincial and territorial counterparts. Discussions have been very constructive, very positive in nature. And as Minister Mendicino said, this will, we hope, lead to the development of a vaccine passport for international travel for Canadians as soon as possible, as early as this fall. Early fall. Discussions we've had with provinces and territories have focused mostly on domestic use of vaccination credentials, and this is a provincial and territorial jurisdiction. Now, we will, of course, work with them, and some provinces, such as Quebec, have taken action on their own. That is their area of jurisdiction. Marco, anything to add? No, thank you, Dominic. You said everything that needs to be said. Second question. Have any provinces or territories signaled to you that they would like to use this federal vaccine passport for international travel for domestic purposes? Answer. Minister Leblanc. Well, I'd like to only speak to that which I know, because I haven't followed or participated in all calls between federal and provincial ministers of health. As for the conversations that I did participate in with premiers of provinces and territories, these calls and meetings led by Prime Minister Trudeau, I don't remember whether this was discussed, but as Minister Mendicino said, it is up to provinces to decide. It is up to them. They have full jurisdiction to decide whether to use this federal proof of vaccination for domestic purposes. That's up to provinces and territories to decide. And if they'd like to work with us on that, well, the federal government is here to help. Now, in this case, we are discussing a very important tool for international travel. But at the end of the day, vaccines are the single best way to protect our friends, families, and communities. That's why if some provinces decide to take action, well, it all reminds us of the importance of getting ourselves fully vaccinated. That is the best way to avoid becoming very ill from COVID-19.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Ministre.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Over to you for the last question. Donc, opérateur, à vous pour la dernière.
Operator, over to you for the last question.
La dernière question.
Last question
will be from Crystal Ogue with Global News. Please go ahead.
Hi there. Thank you for taking my question. My first one's from Minister LeBlanc. So, following the news that the military police will not lay charges against Admiral Art MacDonald, will he be reinstated as Chief of the Defence Staff? And does he have the moral authority to be in command?
So obviously, as the Prime Minister has said, as the Defence Minister has said over and over again, our government is committed to ensure that survivors are treated with the respect they deserve, with the understanding and compassion they deserve. Any allegations of these nature need to be taken extremely seriously. That certainly is a commitment our government has made and has acted upon. But with respect to decisions involving Admiral MacDonald, I don't have any comment to make on that particular issue.
Thank you. And as a follow-up, Minister Mendicino, based on your knowledge as a former federal prosecutor, why are the RCMP not being called in to investigate, and why are Crown prosecutors not making the decisions? The military is investigating itself and moving forward. Where is the commitment to protect women, and what message does this send to those who have come forward?
Well, based on my experience as a former federal prosecutor, it would be inappropriate for me to comment on any potential ongoing investigation or any other actions which law enforcement may be taking. But I will say that, as has been reiterated on numerous times by the Prime Minister right throughout our government, we are committed to undertaking the reforms that are necessary so that everyone within the Canadian Armed Forces and indeed all federal institutions, especially women, can work in an environment that is free from harassment. Any allegations we take very seriously. They go through due process, but certainly we are committed to undertaking that work. There has been some milestones and some progress made, but there's still a long way for us to go, and we acknowledge that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, ministers. Donc voilà qui met fin à cette conférence de presse. That will conclude today's press conference. Thank you for joining us. Merci d'avoir été parmi nous.
Merci. Thanks very much.